This meeting of the Tyler ISD Board of Trustees is called to order. We do have the presence of a quorum. The meeting has been duly called and the notice of the meeting has been posted in the time and manner required. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today. And the first item on our agenda is public participation, and we do have a speaker today, Ms. Carolyn Davis. If you want to come up to the podium.
Good morning.
Morning.
President Washman, board members, and Superintendent Crawford. 185 was the number of teachers in Tyler ISD classrooms reported to the board last semester without teacher certifications. Hopefully, several of the 185 non-certified teachers have now taken teacher certification tests and now have their teaching certificates. I think you might be reporting on that today. Each of you probably heard about the big cheating scandal in the Houston area, in which now it's up to 160 took and failed their teacher certification test and later resorted to paying a proxy to take the test for them. Something is terribly wrong when in some parts of Texas, some individuals aspiring to be teachers are using extreme measures, albeit illegal, to obtain their teacher certifications and be allowed to teach. Yet, in this same state of Texas, in school districts like Tyler ISD, some individuals are allowed to just walk into a public school classroom with no teacher certification and become the teacher of record. In past DOI reporting, it was mentioned that programs are underway for paraprofessionals, CTC, and early college students who desire to become teachers. I encourage you to please continue these programs, especially with CTC and early college students who may result in a larger and faster group of potential teachers. Now, regarding CLT test results of 4-year-olds in Tyler ISD. This test, as you know, is administered 3 times a year to pre-K tuition, pre-K non-tuition, and Head Start students. When the beginning of the year test is administered to the 4-year-olds last year, just 2 weeks, of course, into their brand new school year, which is the current school year, Head Start students scored substantially lower than the other 2 pre-K groups. One example is in the area of rapid vocabulary naming, in which Head Start students scored 33%. Pre-K tuition students scored 86%, which is 53% lower. I realize all 3 groups of pre-K students show progress when the test is given about this time of year, in the middle of the year. Yet the question begs to be asked, do Head Start students ever catch up? If not, what, if any, intervention is being done by Tyler ISD to help close this gigantic gap? Additionally, I am also concerned about the data for the MClass and iReady literacy test for African American students in grades kinder through 2nd. For the current and last school year, this test is also administered 3 times a year. It shows the percentage of students at or about benchmark. The beginning of the year and middle of the year data of African American students in grades kinder through 2nd for the current and last school year is almost consistently the lowest out of the 5 demographic groups listed. Could this be partially due to many African American students being in the Head Start program, many of whom start behind and consequently stay behind? Last but not least, I will end by redirecting your attention to the school board meeting February 17th this year, in which 6 people participated in public speaking On February the 20th, I sent each of you a rather lengthy email reiterating some of their comments and questions, including comments like, no school should be a place of fear. My people are hurting, but you've refused to put out a statement assuring us that our children are safe. So many comments. Questions such as, what procedure is in place in case immigration enforcement should come? What is so difficult about releasing a statement? Why so much hesitation? These are some of their questions. I ended my email by stating I have many of the same questions as the public participants. I am also asking you to please release a statement to students and parents that clarifies your position and hopefully assures students and families they will be protected while at school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Okay, and we do not have any more public participants. Moving on to our continuous improvement in student outcomes, we have a class size update.
Per the board monitoring calendar, we have a class size update that's going to be provided by Deputy Superintendent of Administration, who has the K-8 grades in his side of the org chart in his division. That's Dr. Lance Gropel. Dr. Gropel, lead us through this presentation.
In front of you, this is our semesterly update on class size as it pertains to our kindergarten through fourth grade classrooms that are over the 22-to-1 ratio that the state of Texas has set forth. So you'll see that we have 31 classes where we have an aide available for those classrooms, affecting a total of 47 students in our kindergarten through fourth grade. I would draw your attention to that this number is lower than the fall number that was presented to you. We had fewer students and fewer classrooms district-wide that exceed that 22-to-1 ratio, resulting in a lower number for the spring semester. You see Caldwell and Birdwell on there, as those are magnet programs. We don't provide an additional paraprofessional for those classrooms that you see listed there. But I wanted to note that we are over the 22-to-1 in those classrooms listed at Caldwell and Birdwell as a part of their magnet programming. So subject to any questions you may have on the numbers in front of you.
Thank you, Dr. Gropel. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I just had a question regarding the class size. You know, that's been one of my things since I've been on the board. I know that we have a special project going on within a couple of the schools. How's that project, or I don't know if the board's aware of it. You may want to explain that project and what its goals are.
We have two additional paraprofessionals that we have at Orr and Griffin in our lower grades to work as more of a teacher support at the request of Mr. Newsom to help support the day-to-day operations of the classroom, not as much on the providing small group instruction, but more allowing the teacher to try to create some more time for them to better plan and work to create a better environment in those classrooms. At this point, don't have enough data to put in front of you to make a determination on how effective that is currently being, but we have a classroom at Orr where we have an additional paraprofessional that is seeking teacher certification, as well as a paraprofessional in a bilingual classroom at Griffin.
Last year, didn't we have a para that actually got her teacher certification?
That was at Orr.
Midstream, mid-year.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's teaching for us as well.
Yeah, legislative session right now, everything going on, talking about teacher preparation and DOI and all those other fun ways to go get alternatively certified. Some of the residency models that are out there, Mr. Newsom, there could be some potential dollars for programs like this. Obviously, you're not going to be able to put one in every classroom across every school district in the state of Texas, but there will be some competitive grants possibly available to be able to do that. To where you've got teachers in residency, they get paired with a classroom teacher to do some of these things more on the instructional side than on the operational side, which is what we're driving.
Yes, sir.
My only caution on that, we've talked to the Commissioner of Education about this, we've talked to legislators about paras and them going all in on the teacher prep. While we probably have 4 or 5 that might be in the program right now, Ms. Taylor, I believe. Not many, just a handful. That's probably not going to wind up providing the state of Texas the amount of certified teachers it truly needs to be able to stock our classrooms with certified teachers. It's teacher pay, and attracting talent back into the classroom is what we're all struggling with as well. So I do think that these smaller micro projects that we've got going on, we'll certainly have some data for you at the back end of the year like we've traditionally looked at.
Well, I was pleased with the project at OR from the aspect of last year, the person that we actually had selected, or y'all had selected, became the teacher, the permanent teacher, because somebody went out and you pulled them out of the program to cover the classroom for the rest of the year. So apparently you have a very effective person that was in that position to assist the teacher at the second grade level. So I think the program could be beneficial. At least you had a qualified person that year. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure about the ones this year. I haven't followed it as much, but I was very pleased with that particular movement. And I think that I agree with Dr. Crawford. I think that there will be additional funding, and there should be additional funding if we can get any funding to support programs of that nature. So I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. You said they don't help with instruction, they just do clerical work?
Well, so they help with some of the classroom management issues. They additionally will take them to and from specials, to and from lunch, to and from recess, so the teacher's not supervising those instances, trying to create some time within the day. When you look at Hattie's research about additional staffing, that's one of the effective models. If you add additional staffing, to add it in a way that it's not detracting from the qualified teacher in the room, but creating time within the day to help support their planning, preparation, and getting the teacher those minutes back in the day that are so precious.
Okay.
I will say, I think, so like when there's independent study time or work time, they're also helping with the management of those groups.
Yeah, they're
not
in the
providing
classroom
direct
with them.
instruction, but when the teacher needs to be able to do some smaller group instruction, or maybe lecture or technical time with individual students, when the other 10 are working on something, she's monitoring.
Yeah,
those
that
supervisors. So
individual, if the teacher's pulling a small group and others are working individually, that individual's monitoring students' on-task behavior and that sort of thing. Sorry, I didn't clarify that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Okay, District of Innovation Teacher Certifications granted. Update on that.
Sherry Taylor, Executive Director of Human Resources, is going to provide a report on DOI certifications granted. Per the board monitoring calendar, of course. Twice annually,
Oh, sorry.
correct?
I'm sorry.
Twice a year?
Twice a year,
There you
yes,
go.
sir.
Okay.
Once in the fall and once in the spring. Well, good morning.
Morning.
It's great to be here to discuss our District of Innovation teacher certifications. You do have the report in front of you. We do have 235 that are currently on DOI. That does tend to go up in the fall or spring, because when we have student teachers that graduate and come, they're still in the process of taking their exams. And so we do DOI them, but they are in the process. We have 175 individuals who are in the process. They're either waiting on permission to take a certification test, or they're waiting for program requirements, or they're even out-of-state teachers that they have, that their emergency ran out. And so now we're still working on them taking their tests, because we do have a lot of tests for them to take. I can tell you that we are actively seeking some help for our teachers to be given coursework to help them to where they're successful in passing those exams, hopefully the first time around, as opposed to having to retake over and over and over again. But they are trying and working hard at it. And we do continue to work with our paraprofessionals and encourage them, those that really want to become teachers, to find a program, to go and earn their degree and work on their teacher certification, along with our early college, high school, and CTC students. Any questions?
Anybody on the board have any questions regarding this particular item? So 129 are waiting on this certification test. 41 are waiting on the alternate certification program requirements.
Yes, sir.
And then 5 out of state waiting on a TEA review of their application. And then 23 CTE teachers.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, CTE teachers might not even have a degree at all. They may be welders or worked in auto body. I know there's a McClinney from Lindale. If y'all know anything about Lindale and how many McClinneys are over there. I was actually on the same T-ball team with him when I was 4 years old. I ran into him the other day. I didn't even know he was working here. But I don't know if he's got a degree or not, but he works on our auto body repair. And TEA does allow for certifications to be granted on, he owned his own business forever. We've had some of those. But 85% of those on that list are either in the queue for certification test or what she described as the other ones. You know, what's interesting about this is that, again, it's not anyone off the street. It is somebody that actually has gone to college and obtained a degree. So that is something that we do celebrate for these individuals that have chosen our profession to be able to assist with, and then trying to get them certified. And unless they have been performing extremely well, we give them about a 3-year tryout, and then we ask them to find somewhere else to go. So it's not like we DOI them forever, since we've been doing it for the last 8 or 9 years. Their performance is sometimes great, sometimes it's not so great. And again, through the normal process of contract offering, we were able to provide them an exit out of the district. ESC 7, Region 7 is now a player in teacher certification, so that's in our backyard. That's a good thing to have. You have I Teach Texas. What was that other one?
Texas Teachers for Tomorrow. So that is where A-plus teachers and another organization, 3 of them merged together and created one.
So there's really 3.
Correct.
Speaking to public participation, Ms. Davis, we are aware of the nefarious actions that have been going on inside of those test-taking things. The interesting thing about that is that TEA certifies the test proctoring, no matter where it comes from. So that's not really a school district thing to worry about. We have looked internally to see if we've got anyone, we don't know if we've slipped through the cracks or not, but we don't think we have any. Now, as soon as I say that, we'll wind up having, one. I know we've had some in East Texas. I've talked to other superintendents, and they've had to deal with that appropriately as well. The last thing I'll say about grow your own stuff, I did have a productive meeting with UT Tyler and TJC college presidents. So stay tuned for some, I don't want to know if it's exciting or not, but certainly some strategy, especially with UT Tyler in regard to improvement of producing practitioners. Sometimes higher ed gets caught up in trying to make that extra buck, and they want to throw all of their energy and efforts into principal certification, and somebody trying to be a superintendent, I don't know why they'd want to do that, or getting a doctorate or whatever, maybe curriculum. But Dr. Philly is really interested in teacher certification, and that is not, with the 3 presidents prior to her, that was not something that was really high on their radar. Really, really excited that Dr. Philly is taking that with that baton. The other thing is, I'll say with Dr. Mahia at TJC, he sees the value at early college as well, being able to attract those. So we've got some of those early opportunities there. We need to focus even more so with them now that we've got UT Tyler on board, and now that the service center's on board with alternative certification as well. There's going to be some pretty cool things come out of it. Lastly, spoke a little bit about the legislature, and this is a big focus. They put the task force together, and they really looked more at policy as opposed to teacher pay. There's not too many kids out there that are coming out of college when they can go make $60K right away that choose the profession that pays around $50. And so that's something that's going to have to be worked upon. I think there's some good things that are coming out of, at least on the House side. I'm not so sure on the Senate side if they're really paying attention to the details and the depth that they need to go for this, to attracting talent to come to be a teacher again. So a lot of work around certifications coming, and there is going to be some opportunities for DOI, and I think they're going to put a year restriction on it. Imagine that, similar to what we do internally. But they're actually going to codify it through state policy, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's pretty much the 2 or 3 year target is where we try to land anyways. Am I correct in saying that?
You're correct.
Okay.
And just a comment, I was an out-of-state hiree from Chicago, and so it worked well for me. So I was certified in Illinois, but not here. And so that 5 waiting, they could be certified. They're just waiting on the Texas certification.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Question regarding CTE teachers. Are they required to be certified, or is their license enough to justify them being in the classroom? State doesn't require them to be certified, do they?
No, it depends, because some of them don't have
Right.
a degree to go take the actual certification test, because that is one requirement, is to have a 4-year degree, I believe, isn't it?
For our core content areas, now
Yes.
as far as our CTE with welding, they can have their welding certification and they have experience with that, then we can look at that
They
as
don't have
far
to
as
have a
their.
degree.
Right.
Correct,
Okay.
not on CTE.
And they could, may have an associate's degree or might have got some type of industry certification that qualifies them for that as well.
Okay, thank you for your report. T-tests. Oh, you're still here. T-tests, walkthrough and evaluation update.
Years ago, we brought this to the board, again, for the board monitoring calendar. It's not something that y'all really requested. It was something that was an internal thing from the administration to what you measure improves, right? And so measuring our campus principals, getting in there and being instructional leaders and the assistant principals as well is something that we always want to present publicly.
Yes, sir.
We had a former deputy superintendent that always said, hey, give yourself a Valentine's Day present and make sure you have all your certifications done by Valentine's Day, or excuse me, your observations done, at least 75% of them by Valentine's Day. We don't want observations to occur in May because we've already taken the work's already been done, the hay's in the barn, right? So, Ms. Taylor, why don't you provide us an update on your walkthrough evaluations?
I will be happy to. So we do have our T-test and walkthrough and observation information for you. And just a reminder, T-test is fostering open communications between teachers and students and teachers and campus administration in order to go from a teacher-centered classroom to a student-centered classroom, which is our overall goal. There are 5 components to our evaluation process. We have our informal observations, which are our walkthroughs, and we do require every teacher to have at least 4 walkthroughs, 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring. And then we have our pre-conference for announced formal observation, and that is required because every teacher has to have 1 formal observation that is announced. And then any second observations, they're unannounced, which means you don't have the pre-conference beforehand. Then we have, of course, our formal observation, and we have our post-conference, which is required for announced and unannounced. And then finally, we have our summative, which just is accumulation of all the data and information from our walkthroughs and our evaluation observations. My apologies. So if we look at our walkthrough data, we did drop a little bit, but there's a reason for that, and you'll see that on the next slide. I wanted to go to our elementary and middle school because, yes, it shows that they dropped, but I pulled the data a little bit differently this year. I pulled it to where all of our programs, our K-8 through programs and DAEP, I put them in their own cluster. And the reason I did that is because I didn't want to inflate elementary with some middle school and vice versa. So we do have, that's why there's a dip in both of those, but I do want to point out our high schools were getting in classrooms a little more with the walkthroughs this year. So that's incredible. That's what we like to see because the more we're in classrooms, then the more we're able to hit any concerns or improve our instructional methods immediately. The average walkthrough per teacher is about 2.6. Now, our next is our observations. So our observations did increase a little bit this year, and that is good to see. That's why you saw the walkthrough data go down a little bit because observations take a lot longer. There are 45 minutes at least to observe the teacher, but remember you have that pre-conference beforehand, Then you have the observation, and then you have the post-conference after. I do want to point out our high schools, they increased their observations as well. So high schools were doing really well as far as increasing their amount of time in the classrooms. I did want to point out that as far as our observation data, our district is 80% complete. And this was pulled back in February 28th was the last day that I pulled this data. So we're looking really good. It's not the 75% before Valentine's Day, but it is 80% complete by the end of February. Our elementaries are 93%, and we do have 2 campuses, Jones and Peete, that have completed all their formal observations. And then our K-8 campuses are 68% complete, with DAEP completing all of their first observations. And then middle school, 74% complete, and high school, 67% complete. Just a reminder that, again, our walkthrough data, our observation data, it helps us determine what our professional development needs to be and our plan for the district, but as well as the campuses, what their needs are on the campuses. And that in order, because of this, the district is able to provide in-depth training, which they do so well, because we have teachers tell us all the time, we are trained so well at Tyler ISD, and some coming from other districts said, we've never had this much training, and we've never learned this much from the training. So that's always good to hear, that we are utilizing this data when we're looking at our professional development. Okay, do you have any questions about our T-test?
Board, anybody have any questions or comments?
Just one. I know we do have the option to develop our own
Yes, sir.
evaluation. Do you still think this is the best observation for us to use, best instrument for what it provides?
Yes, right now this gives us the information that we are needing and wanting, and it does allow our teachers to grow because it's a growth model, which is what we want, because we want a growth mindset for our students, we need a growth mindset for our employees as well.
Commissioner Morath has really done some things, I think, in a positive way of bundling a lot of our materials and curricula and standards. So a lot of school districts want to go do their own thing. I think having this kind of aligned in the same trajectory, towards the same trajectory, is probably where we want to continue to go.
We
The
do.
old PDOS model was more of a Likert scale, pretty easy to fill out. I think it was just more of just so you can check some boxes. I do think that this makes you think a little bit more as an instructional leader to be able to develop teachers. So it's a good question, because I know there's a lot out there want to do their own assessments, want to do their own T-tests. But I do agree with the commissioner on trying to bundle and align everything as we try to go towards everything going towards one thing, and that's improving student outcomes.
Yes, sir.
Question. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said the teacher average walkthrough score was 2.6 on a scale of what? I didn't completely understand.
On a scale of 4.
On a
So if
scale of
every
4?
teacher has to have 4 walkthroughs, the
Right.
teachers are averaging 2.6. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't clarify that.
Not a score, it's a number,
It's just a number. It's a number.
number of visitations.
So we want them to have 4
so Every
walkthroughs.
teacher get 2.6 visits, walkthrough visits. Okay.
Out of the-
It's just
out of the
an
4.
overall.
Out of the 4.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Oh, by April 21st, they'll have 4. And then we'll have more, yes, sir. 4 is the minimum.
And even though they're finished with their evaluation, formal evaluation, they're not finished with walkthroughs or visits, correct?
Correct. Walkthroughs continue. And then also, they might even decide they want a second observation. And some principals will do 2 observations per campus, which is great. It's just more feedback.
They used to have to do a portfolio. Is that still required or no? You don't have to bring anything in?
No, sir, they do not have, oh, no, ma'am, I'm sorry. No, ma'am, they don't have to do a portfolio.
I remember the portfolio days.
I do too.
Yeah, and that's when they kind of tried to redesign the way we do this, and I still think I don't know if it's effective or not, but I do think it's a different way to present your professional success. They're nice, but I think we might have got away from it to continue adding.
On collaboration to make sure that we're all on the same page. And the final question in the first part of the statutory requirement is, the districts must establish growth targets at the individual student level that can be linked to applicable teacher and content standard aligned. And we do, because we use a pre-test and post-test model with our students to show student growth.
Okay, well, good morning. Our second requirement for renewal is that we look to expand our current system. And so we are going to do that. Our focus for this year is not going to be as much on the elementary school or the middle school. We're going to kind of stay put for this year. You'll see up here what we've always served, which is basically reading and math from pre-K, Head Start, all the way up through our high schools. So focused at the high school level, really on the 5 EOCs. We do add science in 5th and 8th grade. We add social studies in 8th grade. And then, of course, the biology and U.S. history EOCs. That's where we were for 4 years, or at the end of 4 years. What we're looking at expanding to for next year is to go from those 5 high school courses to 79 high school courses overall. Good. So here's a list. I'll give you a minute to look over it. It's most of the 4 cores from freshman through senior year. And then we're going to add about 56 CTE courses to that list. And so that'll cover the vast majority of teachers at our high school.
Y'all don't freak out. That's all state money. Right there. That's outside the basic allotment. It's outside of teacher raises. It's outside of general funding. It's outside of special education. This is something the state is committed to funding. This merit pay, sir.
As long as we keep getting it.
That's right.
So we will meet that second requirement. And then our third requirement that we have to do is really just holistically review everything. So we look at what indicators we're including, which Ms. Taylor will go over in just a second. We also get a data validation report back annually from the state, and they gave us two bits of feedback, which is pretty consistent with what we get every year. One of them is just to align our designation system as much as possible to the state's designation or growth model, which we're pretty close. We're never going to be perfect because we do include like iReady and some other indicators they don't, but we're very close to that. The second feedback they gave us is just to make sure that we're looking at, recognized exemplary master designations across campuses, across appraisers, student growth across teachers, across appraisers. And we do that twice a year with our principals and their appraisers. So that's a very regular part of what we do every year.
And VAM stands for Value Added Model.
It's the state's way to basically
Yeah.
try and assess how much value a teacher's adding to a student based on that student's growth history.
So our final step is the holistic review of what we already have in place. This is our current model, and I'll just let you look at that real quick. So in the committee, we did discuss the first 2, teacher attendance and student experience. That's our panorama surveys, is the student surveys. Those are local designation criteria that we added. So we can manipulate those numbers because it's what we set. And then the student growth and the T-test, those are the state minimum numbers that they say you have to earn that designation. So there's not anything we can do with that other than raise those if we wanted to. The committee agreed, just leave the student growth and T-test where it's at. We don't want to raise it at this time. Teacher attendance, we're right on board with that. I know they just want some more information on when they can appeal attendance and student surveys, what's some more documentation or what some examples of documentation they can provide, and we can do that on the appeal committee form that we have for them. The next is student surveys. We actually changed the secondary approval rating last year from 60% to 50% approval. The reason we did that is because our national norm numbers show that secondary was a lot lower than elementary, which I can see that because remember you have middle school and high school rating a teacher, and a lot of times they don't want to be there, so what are they going to do?
Y'all ever talk to a high school kid?
Bruh.
So that's the reason we've
Do
lowered
too
it
much. This, I mean, how many times do we hear that?
And it asks, how often do you, one of the questions, how often do you speak about this class outside of school? Okay, middle school and high school student. If you have one, how many times are you having to pull from them, what did you do in class today? Nothing. I had one, that's what she told me all the time. So we do understand that and we see the need for that. What we have considered from the committee is they said, can we not expand the student
The number of surveys.
number of surveys? Thank you. Number of surveys for secondary. Currently, we just look at 20 for both elementary and secondary student surveys that we pull per teacher. We have listened, and we are going to up that to 40 surveys for secondary because it gives them a little more, because they do have more students than what elementary does have as far as sample size. So any questions on our holistic review?
I have one quick question.
Of course.
How do you measure student growth with CTE?
So it's a great question. We actually, it's going to be the same as we do for every other assessment. So we use the pre-test, post-test model. So what will happen is the beginning of the year, we're setting windows with our high schools. They'll take a pre-test. So basically like either a certification pre-test or a third-party pre-test that's approved by TA. They'll take that pre-test. They'll take the same thing towards the end of the year, late April, early May late April or early May of 2026, I think that is. And we'll evaluate growth between the two. So it's the same way as it is for like CLI for our pre-K students or STAR for our STAR tested students.
Not to get in the weeds on assessments, but Dr. Gropel, Dr. Curitan, Dr. Norman, in regards to CTE, well, first of all, it's with Dr. Walls' side, but CTE, my understanding is they have found these appropriate pre and post, obviously the post-test is going to be the certification, but some pre-test to go along with that, correct?
For some of them, we're using the exact post-test, and then the
Okay.
pre-test is basically a mock-up of that where the teachers don't give it, right? So it's kind of independent. For others, it is so that's, I think it's called the NOCTI exam, but for the non-NOCTI exam subjects, we're using the third-party one that's approved by TA.
And then on the AP side, Dr. Gropel, is they're going to be kind of rolled into this advanced placement.
Yes, sir.
Dual credit.
Working with a vendor, Edify, that helps train the folks at TEA, the psychometricians, your favorite profession, to
Cool
write
people,
assessments.
Fun to hang out with.
They're cool people. They're fun to hang out with. That's going to help us write those assessments for all the high school courses, the core content courses that you saw listed earlier. And we'll include AP eventually. It's not in that first, not all of them are
But it's
listed in that
coming.
first. It's coming. But yes, we've partnered with them to help us write those assessments. They're meeting with our local assessment team in 2 weeks, maybe, after we get back from spring break.
So there's a debate out there about a trend statewide, nationwide about, I guess you get extra points for taking the AP course. And it ebbs and flows on whether or not kids want to actually take the AP test, to which they've got to score a 3 or better to be able to have that count towards a certain school. I think Ivy League only takes 5s, or maybe not take them at all. So how does that factor into any of this at all?
No, sir.
Okay. So the AP test we're talking about them taking so that our teachers can receive more compensation is going to be through this vendor as the post-test, not the actual AP test.
Not the actual AP test. It would be it would be a local assessment that this vendor is helping us create.
I don't know. I mean, we may wind up figuring out here in a few years, we need to get the actual AP test taken. Some incentivization. I don't know. I hate making a teacher penalized for a kid not taking the test, but we've got to figure something out for that to happen, because right now we're seeing this trend again. Again, it's not just a Tyler ISD problem. It is an everybody problem of board policy weighting those grade points for just taking the AP class. Some of y'all may have had your own
Well, the
kids
teachers-
doing that for that
The
reason.
teachers do get a little, do they get stipend, for lack of a better term, or do they get paid for how well students do on that, the number of students that pass? Is that
No, we've-
still- Maybe I'm just imagining that.
Not
Some
to my
districts
knowledge.
provide that.
Yeah.
I don't think we provide that anymore if we've even done it since I've been here. I know it's been up for debate. In Dallas, our teachers would make a living doing that, but
Yeah, that's,
again, it goes to the nuances of the type of kids that you have and what their desires and their goals are. Those kids that we had on the campus I was principal at were rabid about, playing 2 honors program at Texas, or trying to get into a military academy, or trying to get an Ivy League or a West Coast school. So I don't know if that's even a thing that's really and incentivization there.
On the classes, on the core classes that you listed on the earlier slide there, how many, because I can think of a few, but like how many math classes are not included in this, or science or English? Is it, I know it's not all of them because I know of some of the classes, but I'm thinking like environmental science is one, or.
It would be difficult to get you a number on that specifically. There are some math classes and some science classes that are not included at this time. We wanted to expand to this number of courses to be able to do it well before we expanded beyond that. When you get into some of the courses that are more and more individualized, the student number is not as large as you would see in these classes. We felt like these courses addressed the majority of the student population, which then gave us a bigger sample size to evaluate how the teacher was doing on a student growth perspective.
Dual credit statistics, obviously,
Yeah.
is one that's not on there yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be something that we can
Art
add
history,
in
is art
future years.
history on there? Is
Art history is not involved at this time.
Yeah, it is. I assume this is also pre-AP, although it doesn't say that, but I assume.
Yes, it does. It's like you see geometry there, that will include on-level and pre-AP.
Well, this is exciting. Glad y'all are expanding that. And I assume that's, and we can expand it every year or not, or?
Yes, sir, we can expand it every year. We do an updated application that we send.
And when is that due?
Every April.
Is this due in April as well?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So
April what?
One last thing.
It is, due date's April 15th, but it's going to be in well before then.
Okay, well, we still got 6 weeks to add to it, right?
Well, we do, but I can tell you that they have thoroughly gone through everything, and these are the courses that we know we're ready to add. And we don't want to just throw something on there if we're not ready for it.
And sorry, Dr. Crawford, one more, and the committee that you were talking about, that's made up of teachers are on that committee?
So the System Renewal Committee was made up teachers, community members, principals, district administration. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry. There's a bill right now that's floating around the legislature to where they'd actually add a fourth tier, for lack of a better term. I don't have much detail about that, but that's, they're trying to get us to get more teachers, and they're trying to get more teachers into the system. Again, it's merit-based pay. One thing I have heard is they do want fine arts, physical education, other elective courses. They want it expanded into those as well. So us starting this out this way, over the years, you may wind up seeing other curricula and content areas included in this, which, again, as long as we can have a livable starting salary, if the state's going to fund this in perpetuity, let's go. We're going to be in on that so that teachers can get the compensation they deserve.
Question.
Yes,
Regarding the teacher's attendance, and I was wondering how, you said that we determine the attendance rate or absences in regards to the setting up the program? Okay, so do we have any teachers that maybe meet all the other criteria that only disqualify because of absences? And do we take anything in consideration with that?
Yes, sir. So we have had that, and we do have an appeal committee, and that all they have to do is fill out the appeal form and attach whatever documentation they want us to take into consideration.
Oh, great, okay.
Is that the same for student surveys as well? They can appeal that?
Yes, sir.
What's typically if you were to guesstimate your pass rate on appeals, or?
Oh, we had roughly 79 appeals, 79 or 83 appeals last year.
Just on attendance or surveys? Or-
Some would have us recalculate student growth, or, in which we can recalculate student T-test. But we have about 50% appeal committee passing rate. I'm trying to go back to
I'd
last
say
year.
less than that, but I'd say 25 to 50 if I had to guess.
And it is,
Ballpark.
we have to take in consideration what they're submitting. Some of it just depends what they submit and what they say. It needs to be something that wasn't an unforeseen I guess, incident or that they take into consideration.
I'll give you an example. I don't sit in on every one of them, but whenever they've got the big spreadsheet up on one of the big monitors in there, I'll just sit down for 5 or 10 minutes and I'll just look up there and just ask questions, especially some teachers I recognize. I was like, oh, they're appealing, and then they'll tell me why they're appealing, and some sound like it's, I don't ever, or try not to provide my opinion about it. But I know we've had some silly ones as well, to where a teacher might have missed the attendance because she chose to go on a field trip with one of her own children. So she was out of that classroom. So, you know, that means that we had to put a sub in that classroom, that the sub got instruction that day on the ones that were responsible. So there's some things that I don't get to go for my children, and same thing with my wife. So sometimes we get some pretty simple ones for us. There's some other ones that are tragic, you know, as far as health-related things that go, that sometimes people just have unforeseen health tragedies or something else happens as well. So we don't take it lightly.
Well, I applaud the program, because I think we need incentives. Anything we can get to help our teachers' pay increase, I'm for. And I want to make sure that they are treated fairly in regards to that. I know that some things do come up that may result in them being absent from the classroom. So, you know, we should take that in consideration.
Yeah.
So I think that sounds like you got a good system in place. That's fair, at least. So,
A lot of
okay.
anecdotal examples, but I'm familiar with one high school English teacher last year that challenged the survey,
Yes, sir.
student experience survey, and she's an English teacher. She stated her case very effectively, and it made a lot of sense, and I think that's probably why you have a little adjustment on there
Correct.
as well. So we do listen.
Right, because the point, you know, I'm thinking if you're good on your T-test and your scores are good, but the random 20 kids that get your survey out of 120,
40 now, right?
40 now,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
You know, just because,
Yeah.
and that's kind of why I've asked you to, you know, hey, send me what's on these surveys, and you kind of alluded to it a little
Yeah.
bit, but.
Now, we've also had teachers come in and talk about absences, and they're knocking it out of the park, but you look at the students that they have in their class, sometimes they can just show up and get after it, because they're
And I can see it being a 10. I mean, because that's what we give them, right? That's a benefit for them.
Yes,
They
sir.
get 5 local and 5 state, and that's their benefits.
yeah, we don't have to include attendance in the design of this, so we could let them have 25 or 30 absences.
I
and
wouldn't go that
qualify.
far, you know,
But as we were going through this and the architecture of this thing, that was a big deal for us, because we were having teacher attendance issues.
Correct.
And so this
That
kind of
should be an incentive.
incentivizes
Yeah,
to come to
right.
work.
It should be an incentive, right?
Our teacher attendance has improved since it's been in the TIA plan. And you do hear
That's
people
good.
talking, I don't want to be out. I want to be here
Right.
because I want TIA. So
Yeah.
it has helped in that effect.
Yeah, and spouse teachers,
Oh.
two rock stars that I'm very aware of, finding people to watch their kids so that they stay under that, as a pair, that 20 absence threshold, or 5, with the ones I'm talking about, 10 absence threshold between the two. They were so glad that their dad moved to Tyler and built a house right next to them, so that so that they don't miss. And then they'll come up to me and say, Dr. Crawford, I just want you to know, I think I had the flu, and I still came to school because I do not. I said, well, did you get tested? No, so then you didn't have the flu. It's cold, right? So they play around with this, and they compete with it, and I'm really appreciative of it.
Well, I mean, just in general in life, being present matters. I don't care if you're a dad or a parent or a Sunday school teacher, a teacher, or just going to work, showing up matters. And so, especially if you're good at something and they're getting more of you, then they're doing better. So I do like that teacher attendance is part of it. Also understanding that things do happen. But yeah, showing up is big in my book. So anybody else? Thank you and thank everybody for your questions, and it's very important. And, yeah, so I guess we'll, on this, we'll entertain a motion then to approve this application or the renewal application for this. Do I have a motion on that item?
So move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries, and good luck with your renewal. Thank you for the work you put into it. Okay, we have various action items, many of which have to do with upcoming elections and whatnot. But the first one is roof replacements at Douglas, Jack, and partial roof replacement at Caldwell.
Yes, sir. What we have here is in preparation for our preventative maintenance and summer projects. The reason we're bringing it to you here at the very 1st of March is we've got to stage and these materials. The contractors have to go buy the materials as well. We want to be able to do this so that we can hit the ground running as soon as summer break hits. So again, our tax dollars at work, our 3 cents on the tax rate at work to take care of our facilities. Douglas, Jack, and a partial roof replacement at Caldwell Arts Academy. Anything else, Mr. Loper? Okay.
Okay. So those schools, Douglas and Jack, have been in existence long enough that their roofs are to be replaced?
20 years, correct?
Has it been that long? Really?
20 years.
Wow.
It's hard to believe it. Yes.
Wow.
So Douglas and Jack were built in the 2004 bond, along with the annex, which is the middle school building at Caldwell.
Mhm.
And so they're all due, and we're coming up on those phases. I know, Mr. Newsome,
We can know.
it's been, you are. But, yeah, and surprisingly enough, as we monitored and looked and evaluated these roofs with our professional and Mr. Bedingfield and Ms. Jones, they've held up very good, and I'm very pleased because we have good buildings, and inside the buildings have held up well too. So, but it's time to keep moving forward with it, and we'll have more to come in the future because we're starting to come to all those phases.
Hey, while you're there, just briefly, COVID money that we spent, ESSER money, did we do any roofs with ESSER money?
We did do one roof,
This is an update, just as a reminder.
and that was Hogg,
Okay.
and we did that under ESSER funds. We did replace Gary, the administration building, also at the same time. But that was not with ESSER funds. That was with preventive maintenance.
Okay.
And then, so that did help. That helped offset some future costs as these roofs come due. So, very pleased to bring this to you, and I certainly.
One last comment before y'all consider and take action, just a heads up. We set this 3 cents on the tax rate back in when?
2001.
2001, as we were trying to gear up for all of this. Remember, $1 in 2001 is a little different than $1 in 2025. I'm just going to put that out there. I don't want to freak everybody out, but there's going to have to be some adjustments. Obviously, our values have changed. Our revenue off of the tax rate has changed, et cetera, et cetera. But it is expensive. Your 2017 high schools that were built for around $215 million would probably go for around $600 million right now.
Yeah, the inflation and escalation, it hadn't helped. But, fortunately, we've been able to stagger a lot of these, and that's what our job is, stagger a lot of the replacements, because like you've heard me say in the past, when we build it at the same time, it dies at the same time. So we stagger those into the future, stretch those dollars as far as possible. Whereas other districts in Texas can't do that. They don't have that kind of plan, and thankfully you guys support that, and they have to go to bond issues for this type of stuff.
Just as a refresher, the process of putting out these bids, what's what's the window, on, you guys throw it out there in whatever way you advertise that? And then what's the window on people responding and getting bids in, and how long does that typically take?
Well, I think by law, you have to advertise 2 weeks ahead of time before you open the bids. And of course, we work from board meeting to board meeting. And so it takes about a month or better. That's after you have the design done. And so,
I would
yeah.
imagine there's a lot of,
sir?
I would imagine there's a lot of roofing companies that typically come out of the woodwork to.
There is, and we had, in your agenda item, I think we had 5 on there. And some of them we don't know. We're pleased to hopefully bring Advanced Roofing. They're the ones that did Hogg, and the others, a great company. They're local to East Texas, and very conscientious, have done us a good job. So, and the other thing too, like Dr. Crawford said, we still have problems getting materials. That's another reason we get here early. But we're not the only school district around East Texas that are doing roofs, so we do like to get ahead of everybody else.
Okay.
Just a comment in regards to that, because it has been 20 years and we set the 3 cents in place. So like Dr. Crawford alluded to, it may be time for you to consider adding 1 or 2 cents to that fund, because I know that it's made a difference in how our schools look and the maintenance of the schools. Because I've been around and I knew before, and before we had the 3 cents that we had problems. So considering the cost over the 20 years and still maintaining the 3 cents, I think it's something you may need to evaluate and see if it's effective or not. Because, like you said, costs have increased considerably from 20 years ago.
Yes.
We will evaluate after this legislative session to see if there's an increase in the basic allotment, because
I understand.
state, our local taxpayers hate debt. We don't like it. We don't embrace it. Sometimes that's how you have to do it. But the only way to consider a penny or two is going to have to be an increase in the basic allotment. And so that's why we're hoping that the House plan, they're starting off at $220 per kid increase. We hope that it doubles, maybe triples. I doubt it'll triple. But that'll allow us to make some decisions on this, Mr. Newsom. But yes, sir, good idea.
In regards to that, you mentioned taxes in general. They're talking about decreasing the state taxes in general for, property and et cetera. So if they decrease that, does that affect our income as well, as far as the district?
It's all formalized now.
I know.
That compression means that if the local tax rate is compressed, then the state makes it up.
Okay.
So if they're talking about teacher raises, they're talking about increasing the basic allotment, that means the state is going to pick up the funding, and that the local homeowner, not commercial property owners, but the local homeowners are the ones that could see a lower tax rate. But it doesn't mean that our revenue decreases now.
Okay.
2020 or 2009, 2011, a long time ago now to me. We did have a state reduction because the economy was so bad. I think they cut like $5 or $6 billion out of public ed. We have not had a cut like that in a long time. Now, they didn't increase us last time, but we didn't have a cut like that. So I don't think that's going to happen this time. Good discussion on that, though.
You also might have noticed after that compression that values went pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So they made up for some of that by telling appraisal boards at certain counties, you need to jack up your appraisals. So it's not unnoticed. I'll say that. Okay. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on item A then.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Guys have it, and the motion carries. Now, we'll take B through D one at a time. B is to consider approval of certification of unopposed candidate for single-member District 6. Who is that? Congrats. Do I have a motion on that item?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Congratulations, Mrs. Harrison, on your unopposed candidacy. Okay, C, consider approval of an order declaring the cancellation of trustee election of unopposed candidate, single-member District 6. Do I have a motion on that item?
I move.
Thank you. Do I have
I'll
a second?
second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. D, consider approval of supplemental order approving an amended list of early voting locations, dates, times, and approving election day polling places for the general election for school trustees to be held May 3rd, 2025.
That's at your place under separate cover.
Yeah.
We were able to get the final location yesterday afternoon, officially from the county elections office. You can look at those in front of you. If you have any questions about it, contact Gina or next week.
Thank you for working on that. Thank you for all of those places who open up wherever they might be for these elections. So I'll entertain a motion on item D.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. We will now go into executive session, and Dr. Crawford, I don't believe we'll have any action to follow, do you?
We don't,
Okay.
and I don't have a whole lot for you in there, if anything, so it may be a pretty quick one.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Let's go into executive session.